Step number 4 is all about how to win by default. So let me ask you a simple question. When is it more easy to resist temptation? Is it when you're in the heat of the moment? Or is it when the temptation isn't really there because you dealt with it beforehand? Obviously, it's the second situation. So for this, let me tell you a quick story. There once was a Greek hero, Odysseus, who fought in the Trojan War. If you haven't seen it, Troy is a great movie about this. Can recommend. But the thing is, he was sailing back to his homeland of Ithaca. And there were rumors in the Greek mythology about the sirens. Basically, if you're not familiar with it, think mermaids, but they had mesmerizing voices. And any man who would hear these voices would fall into a sort of trance. They would jump overboard from the ship into the icy cold water and they would just drown. However, Odysseus, he really wanted to hear these siren songs. So what did he do? He went and sailed past where the sirens were. However, beforehand, he had his men tie him to the mast so that he could still hear it, but he couldn't act upon those impulses. And then he had his men, of course, plug their ears with wax or something like that so that they wouldn't hear it. And so this way they could sail by safely with Odysseus hearing the song and nobody falling victim to the effects of that trance. Now, this was thousands of years ago, so what does this have to do with you right now? When do you think it's easier to avoid eating snacks? Is it when the bowl of cookies or snacks or candy is right there on your desk? Or when it's somewhere in a cupboard downstairs in the kitchen? Or I'll give you a third option, when it's not in the house. And if you wanted to get a snack, you need to go outside, you need to put on your coat, go to the store, get it, go back, and then you can have it. Right? In the first situation, you will eat a lot of those snacks. Second situation, you're way less likely to do so. Because the thing is, these things, our eyes, they create a lot of our habits, both good habits as well as bad habits. To give you one example of this, is maybe you've been in the grocery store, you're just strolling along, like everything is good, but then suddenly you look down at your cart. And what you see candy, you see cookies, you see ice cream, you see other unhealthy foods. And you're like, how did this stuff here get in my cart? And the truth is, you weren't snackish. You didn't want those things until you saw them in the aisle. Maybe you saw this huge life-size display and you're like, okay. And almost instantly you just grab it without even realizing you're doing it. So the more you can get things out of your sight so that you don't see it, so that you don't hear it, so that you don't feel it, smell it, the more you can get that away from you, the easier it is to resist those temptations. Because you're not going to be in a position where you need them. And this is just a long way to say, change up your environment. For example, if you constantly get distracted by your phone, go to your settings, go to your notifications, turn off all notifications. Boom. 30-second task, but now you won't get interrupted for hours and days even. All because you did one simple step where you set yourself up to win by default. Another example of this, like I shared, would be making sure that the unhealthy food you want to get rid of, like we talked about in step 1, is not in the house. If you want to avoid falling victim to certain websites, go and use an app blocker, a site blocker, and block those things. So that even if you try to, even if you are in this position where you need to use your willpower to resist, and you can't, and your fingers go and type, guess what? It then says website blocked. Congratulations, you won, because you set up your environment in a way that's cohesive towards achieving your goals. So once again, take out a pen and write down what you can do in order to set yourself up for success, to get rid of your temptations. And on the flip side, what you want to do with the good behavior that you do want is make it visible. Create an inspiration stack around you. For example, that's the reason I have these 3 things behind me. I can look at it and be like, you know what, I can go a little bit further. it is something that inspires me. There is one scene from The Simpsons where Mr. Burns puts this sign in front of Homer at his job that says, "Don't forget, you are here forever." And what Homer does with this is he takes pictures of Maggie, his newborn daughter that's somehow already 30 years old. I don't know, weird stuff. And then he just posts them all over this board. And now it's full of pictures, and the text that remains underneath them is, "Do it for her." That's a way to transform your environment in order to get more done without the need for willpower. Because once you're there, once you see it, it automatically inspires you. Do those kinds of things to your environment where you create barriers around the things that you don't want to do, where you get them out of your sight so that you don't have the temptation. And for your good habits, you do the opposite. You make it easy. So maybe you put your gym clothing right like over the remote if you're inclined to watch Netflix normally. You just take your remote, put it down, put your gym clothing on top of it. Now it's more visible and it's more easily accessible. And then create inspiration as well and remove distractions, remove hurtful websites, apps, etc. And as you do that, you will find that your behavior is automatically going to steer into the right direction. Now,